Toni Guidi earned her bachelor's degree in political science from the State University of New York at Binghamton in 1991. She earned her master's degree in special education and elementary education at Hofstra University in 1992. Mrs. Guidi served in teaching and administrative roles in public education. She accepted a faculty position at Towson University in 2004. These are her reflections.
Mrs. Guidi, thank you so much for taking your time to come and be part of our Teacher Education Oral History Project. You have been involved in teacher education here at Towson for some time, and your contribution will add greatly to our understanding of teacher education at Towson across time. I think a good place to begin is in the beginning, and so would you share with us a little bit about your early social context, where you grew up and what kinds of thoughts you were having about what you might want to do once you graduated from high school?
Sure, and thank you so much for inviting me, and it's an honor to be a participant in this project. But basically, I grew up in upstate New York. It was a small town called Rome, New York, and obviously I just always knew, and my parents always prepared me that college was, is not an option. It was mandatory, which, that was a great thing. So I applied to several state colleges in New York, and I decided to go to SUNY State University in New York at Binghamton.
Mm-hmm.
And I was your typical freshman. I basically had no idea what I wanted to do. I took a lot of liberal arts classes, some electives, and I think it was like pretty much like through the halfway part of the sophomore year when I decided that I was really enjoying my political science courses.
Uh-huh.
So at the same time, I took a few history classes, and I realized that I was very close to history minor. So I went ahead and I set the stage for political science to be my major, and history is a minor, and completed all the courses I needed, my junior year, and then my
Wow.
freshman year. My senior year, the first semester of my senior year, I was able to take an elective, and one of my roommates asked me to take this class that it was 3 credits, and it involved going into an elementary school in the inner part of Binghamton,
Mm-hmm.
the city of Binghamton. And I'm like, that sounds like a great elective to take. I think I'm going to go ahead. And so registered for the class, and we met, I think it was one night a week, and then they immediately placed us into an elementary school. And I started working with a particular student that had a pretty troubled background,
Mm-hmm.
and went to the school about once a week and kind of served as a mentor to her,
Mm-hmm.
almost like a tutor as well. And I loved the class. I absolutely loved it. And I decided after the class was over that I was going to go ahead and volunteer in the school.
Oh.
And I specifically was interested in volunteering in a special education class. And from that moment on, I was hooked. And I realized that I wanted to then pursue teaching. So since I didn't have, my undergraduate wasn't in education,
Right.
I decided I wanted to go straight for my master's. And I applied to a few schools. One was Hofstra University, the other one was Fordham. And then I believe I applied to Columbia. It's been a while, I forgot, but I'm pretty sure it was Columbia as well. And I decided that I was going to go to Hofstra because they had a dual degree program in elementary ed and special education, and for my master's.
Okay.
And so I graduated in late May of '91 and packed up my bags and moved to Long Island. And within 2 weeks, I started my graduate courses at Hofstra.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was able to complete my master's. It was 46 credits. I was able to complete that and graduate in December of 1992.
So you did this
So-
lickety-split.
I did, because once I took that class, I knew that was the profession that I wanted to pursue. So I enjoyed my undergraduate classes in political science and history, but I just knew that education was the way I wanted to go.
So here, as part of that master's degree, did that also provide you with the coursework you needed to get certified in elementary and special ed?
Yes, it
Sort
was
of like an MAT program in
It was a Master
some
of
regard?
Science. It was a Master of Science, but yes, it was specifically for applicants such as myself that had a 4-year degree, but not in education. So, but yeah, it was not you didn't come out with an MA. It was the Master's of Science. Yeah.
As part of that, did you go into schools a lot? Did you do anything comparable to student teaching or an internship?
I did have to complete a full semester of student teaching, and because it was a dual certification program, I did, part of it was in a 5th grade general education class, and then part of it was in a primary level working with special education students. In regards to like field placements, there were actually minimal at that time. We had to do some observing, but when I compare it to the time that our students here at Towson spend in the field, it was very little compared to now what we require our students in the College of Education to participate in.
Did you get any sense before you did your student teaching then of what grade level you might want to work with, or whether you were more inclined to want to be a classroom teacher or general ed teacher or a special educator in some capacity?
Well, it was funny because at first I thought elementary ed was the way I was going to go, and then once I always seemed to just navigate towards the students with special needs. And as I said, my internship was in, or student teaching was in a 5th grade and like a primary level for the special education piece. The school psychologist observed me a couple times and was, I guess you could say, was hoping that he was interested in me taking a position in that elementary school. But he did say that if he pegged me as a teacher for more intermediate levels and versus primary. But
interesting.
Yeah, it is. I loved 1st grade, but he just seemed like I was more comfortable with the older students, which is interesting because all of my career is in a middle school experience.
So maybe there was something to that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you go through this student teaching experience. Boy, and did you go through all of this in a hurry. At the end of that experience, were you feeling good about your choice? Were you feeling confident about your ability to manage a classroom or a resource room or whatever?
Absolutely. I had a very strong mentor when I was, well, I should say strong mentors when I was student teaching. And I was in a diverse school. So there were behavior management issues. And so I did have experience in that. And I knew that it was the right profession for me, and was so excited to get my first teaching position. But that's like a whole different story. On Long Island at that time, it was, well, probably now too, but when students were applying for teaching positions in the elementary ed field, it was one applicant. I'm sorry, it was 500 applicants for every one position.
Oh,
And
Lordy.
in regards to special education, it was one position for every 250 applicants. So in Long Island, they do it by county, or not by counties, they do it by cities or towns. So instead of applying to, say, 20 different counties, you're applying to almost 80 different towns, cities. It's different. They don't.
So that's 80 applications?
80 applications, 80 resumes, 80 cover letters. So it was one of those things where I worked really, really hard because I wanted to get in front of an administrator for an interview. And I was very lucky. I was able to get a few interviews. And I graduated in December, and I was able to start teaching in January. It was at a self-contained school for, actually that was for high schoolers.
Interesting.
Yes.
Your students get older and older.
Yeah. But so anyway, I did that for like half a year. But what I really wanted to do was get into a comprehensive school. I didn't want to be in a self-contained setting. So I reapplied to some area towns, and that's when I did obtain a position at in Freeport, which is the Freeport district, and that was in a junior high school. So, and I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students.
And was that in a setting where you were working in a regular classroom?
Once again,
Co-teaching?
those were the days of self-contained
I see.
classes. So now those students would not be in a self-contained class. I taught 2 sections of students with learning disabilities. So obviously today they would be in all general ed classes.
Mhm.
And then I had 2 classes of students with, in those days they called it a serious emotional disturbance.
Huh.
And most of those students probably would have been included if it was today as well.
Uh-huh. Wow.
So things have changed.
Yes, and they have indeed. And that's interesting in and of itself, is
Mhm.
that transition has happened. So how many students would you have in a class, especially if you were dealing with students with emotional disabilities?
The class with the students with emotional disabilities, they capped those around 12.
That's still a lot.
It is. And the classes where the students had a specific learning disability, they were as large as 18.
Mm. And what kinds of disabilities could there be in one class?
Well, in those days, autism was not as, actually, autism was just being recognized by IDEA right around that time. But it was very rare to have a student with that,
Uh-huh.
label.
Uh-huh.
The students that were in the class were all labeled as students with a specific learning disability.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow. And how long did you do that?
I did that for 2 years,
Uh-huh.
and I loved the 2 years that I was there. But at that time, my husband and I decided that it was time we wanted to relocate.
Uh-huh.
So we wanted to, we decided that we thought it'd be best to just start our future outside of Long Island, and that
Uh-huh.
was just because of the cost of living.
Sure.
So I was able to get a teaching position for Baltimore County Public Schools. So during that summer, we packed up and we moved down to Maryland, and that fall I started teaching in Baltimore County Public Schools in a middle school.
And what was the setup in the middle school there? Was that still self-contained?
No, that I took an inclusion position.
Ah,
And I was with 8th grade. I had all the 8th grade special education students that were included in the middle school setting. And I believe in inclusion, but it was definitely a different experience for me. I went from having full control in my self-contained class
uh-huh.
to having basically being kind of, not really in control. And in those days, co-teaching was not as popular or as, used as much as it is today. So I needed to avoid being the instructional assistant, and I needed to assert myself as an equal in those classrooms. And it was difficult.
I guess so. And how long did you do that?
I did that for 2 years, and then I was asked to take a department chair position and an IEP team chair position at the same school.
Okay.
And because of the complexity of the caseload, we had several classrooms with students with emotional disturbances. We were a cluster program, so other Baltimore County schools would send their children to our programs, and we had a very large inclusion program. I did not have any teaching responsibilities, so it was purely an administrative role.
Uh-huh. And I'm not quite certain I understand what you did in that job.
As a department chair?
Yes, and
Well,
didn't you say something else at
An
the same
IEP
time?
team chair.
Yes.
So yes, as a department chair, I was responsible for maintaining like the organization and all the staffing issues. I pretty much supervised all of the teachers in my department.
Uh-huh.
So I would observe them. I would help them instructionally. I would problem solve, issues in the classroom. I would assist with behavior management. Just a typical school-based administrative responsibilities. As the IEP team chair, which stands for the Individualized Education Program team chair, I would run all of the IEP team meetings. So I needed to make sure that all of our meetings, we were in compliance with IDEA, and that we were writing IEPs that were relevant to the student, met their needs, and that we were being compliant with what was written in those IEPs.
Mm-hmm. And so you were responsible for these IEP team meetings. Just so everybody gets a sense of who are the players at the table at an IEP meeting?
As the IEP team chair, I was designated as the administrator because you have to have an administrator at the team, and the school psychologist would sit in on most of the teams, as well as the special education teacher. Of course, we always invite the parent, and we were at a school where there was very low parental involvement, so we would try to contact the home several times, and we would send written invitations. We would call, and sometimes we would actually send out our pupil personnel worker to visit the home to remind the parent to please come to the IEP team. And then we would have related service providers, such as a speech-language pathologist or occupational therapist. We would also invite our school nurse because many of our students were on medication for, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or some, psychiatric problems as well. So, and an interesting piece about the IEP team composition is that the first few years when I was running them, we did not have to have a regular education teacher there. But then as IDEA was reauthorized, then it became mandatory. So they were always a required member of the team.
It seems like a good idea.
Oh, absolutely, since they're the experts in the curriculum. And they see the student much more than the special education teacher does.
And any of the other players.
Yeah.
So, interesting. And that must have been an interesting transition to do in the same school. You're taking on administrative responsibilities and involving people
Right.
that you knew in a different kind of relationship.
Correct. I went from being a teammate to being, pretty much the, I guess you say the authority, or just to being the administrator. But I was well liked. I was well respected by my teammates. So it was a pretty easy transition.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, Toni, at some point, there's a phone call or somebody talks to you about maybe teaching a course for Towson University. When did that happen?
That's a funny story, and you never know when an opportunity is going to present itself. I was up at the Board of Education for Baltimore County Public Schools. It was the Central Area Office, and I made a comment to one of the she was the director of non-public placements at Baltimore County for Baltimore County Public Schools. And I made a very, quick statement saying, someday I would like to teach at the college level. And Cynthia remembered that comment because she was asked by actually she's still in my department right now, Mrs. Rosemary Rappa asked Cynthia Amaral if she would be interested in teaching a course. And this was probably 1.5 to 2 years after I made that comment.
Yes.
So Cynthia's like, no, I'm not interested, but I know Toni Guidi is.
She didn't forget.
Right. So Rosemary knew me because I was involved in a lot of complicated cases that had to go to a central IEP team. And I know Rosemary and I had a great working relationship. So she called me up one day and she's like, would you be interested in teaching a graduate course? And I was like, I'm scared, but yes, I'm very interested. So I did. I took on the course. I taught it, and then they kept asking me back. So I was an adjunct for 2 years, and I taught for 4 semesters as an adjunct.
And did you do the Intro to Special Ed course or something different? Or
No, the funny thing is they threw me in to like the higher level courses.
Oops.
Yeah, I taught. It was a 641, and it was a curriculum and methods course related to instruction. And they also asked me to teach a classroom management course as well. So, and I loved it. So then a lecturer position came open, and I was still working for Baltimore County Schools. But at that time, Dr. Amy Pleat was running the department, and she was, she wanted to. Oh no, you know what? She was on. I'm sorry. She was replaced. That's right, by Jane Williams. And Jane knew I worked with, as an adjunct. Jane knew me, and she thought I would be a great candidate, and she asked me to apply for the full-time lecturer position. So I did, and I'm happy to say that I was, I got the position and have not looked back ever since.
Well, we're delighted that you made that decision. Could you tell us a little bit about what you did when you first came as a full-time lecturer, and then sort of lead us through to your involvement now in Harford County?
Sure. The first year that I came on as a faculty member, I taught 3 different courses. So it was a lot, but I loved every minute of it. I taught 3 different courses, plus I had a caseload of it was about 10 interns.
Mm-hmm.
So I started in the single certification program, just a strict special ed program, and I was working with students that were getting certified in the secondary adult track for special education.
Mm-hmm.
So the learning curve was huge, but I had a lot of supportive, teammates, and I got the support that I needed. And then the following year, I was again asked to teach some different courses, but then I moved to the elementary middle track for special education.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for the following year as well. Then the initiative in the northeast area of Maryland, they said, that track opened, and they asked if I was interested in becoming the program director. And my heart is in Harford County. I'm a Harford County resident, and I was like, absolutely, I would be honored to take that position. So we started classes we started a full-time program in 2008 up at the Heat Center.
Okay, when you tell us a little bit about how this works. When you say you started the full-time program, is that saying that they would start right out of high school into the program, or is this start someplace else and transfer into the program? How would that work?
That's a good question. Basically, this is considered a 2+2 program.
Uh-huh.
So the first 2 years, the students complete their courses at an area community college. So my students come from either Cecil College or they come from Hartford Community College. And in their 2 years, while they're at the community college, they basically take courses that transfer to Towson as either prerequisites or as what we now call the core courses. And so they come to us with approximately 64 credits.
Uh-huh.
To get into the undergraduate program at our satellite center for Towson, they have to take the Praxis 1, and they have to pass that, as well as they have to meet all of the prerequisites in the core courses, when they're in their first 2 years at the community college. So it's a formal application, and they apply to the university. The university admits them first, and then once they're admitted, I then take a look at their community college transcripts, make sure that they have the intro to special education, make sure that they've taken sociology, classes like that. I obtain the documentation of passing the praxis, and they also have to submit a writing sample.
Uh-huh.
So if they meet those qualifications, plus they have to have a GPA of 2.75 or higher, then they would be eligible to begin at the Heat Center as an undergraduate student for Towson University. And we have 2 programs up there now. We have the elementary ed special education program, which is a Bachelor of Science, and we have the early childhood special education program, which is also a Bachelor of Science in Education.
And so how many credits then approximately would they take up at the Heat Center?
And then basically they take 66 credits with us as Towson
Uh-huh.
University students. So then they graduate with over 120, and with all of the coursework that provides them the degree through Towson, but will allow them to go for certification through Maryland State Department of Education.
So this would be quite an undertaking to get that program up and running. As I'm sitting here thinking about it, it says eventually these students are going to need some early placements to get a feel for what it would like to be in a classroom. And then at some point, they're going to have probably 2 placements for their actual student teaching internship semester. So how did you make all of that happen?
I have been working closely with Harford County Public Schools, and they have been wonderful. In the first semester, the students are in field placements for both their science and their math courses.
Wow.
And Harford County has opened up several elementary schools for us to allow these field placements to occur. Then in their second semester, they are in a reading and literacy placement And same thing, we have the students go to a different elementary school in order to give them different exposures to
Sure.
different administrators, different students, etc. And then starting their second year of the program, they move right into their internship. And we do place most of our students, we place all of our students in a professional development school for the elementary education piece. For the special education piece, because it's so difficult to find that many mentors in our PDSs, we do have to look outside of our two professional development schools and try to place them in other Harford County elementary schools.
So if they're doing, so they're in a number of different schools over that 2-year
Yes.
period then. They're getting lots of experience, intensive and early on.
It is intensive. None of our field placements are strictly observations. The students may observe first week or two, but from there on in, it's hands-on. They go right in, they assist, then they will start to co-teach, and then they will move into actually developing the lessons for the subject in which they're in the field placement for. So it is. It's not 30 hours of standing around and observing. It is actually working, being very, very active. And again, they learn best by being actively engaged, as all children do. So.
And so for that second professional year, did they stay in the same schools for the whole year?
No, we have them move as well, because again, we want to expose them to as many different cultures of the schools and many different communities and climates.
Sure.
And it's also good to get them in front of other administrators, so that maybe possibly if there's an opening, one of the principals may, say they'd be interested in hiring them. So we do not place them in the same school for the full year internship.
Give them some variety.
Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you this question, and I'm not certain if you even know the answer, and that's how have graduates of the program, so you've been doing this, the first graduates would have come out in...
They graduated 2010.
So you've done this now for 3 years. So you've had 3 cohorts go through.
Correct.
What is their success rate in terms of finding employment after they graduate?
Well, that's a very exciting piece, and that's the piece where I tend to brag a lot about. Our graduates are highly sought out by the administrators. I do have data, and I gather this every year. We do track which student has obtained a full-time teaching position and where, and our rate of placement is extremely high. I don't have specific figures memorized, but I would say probably close to 80 to 90% of our graduates are hired within Harford County Public Schools. A few are hired by Cecil County, and a couple do obtain, employment in Baltimore County as well. We had one student from the first cohort who wanted to work in an urban area, and she was hired by Baltimore City, and she's still there, and is just very, very happy in the school she's in. So my favorite story is 2 years ago, Red Pump Elementary was a brand new school that was opened near the Falston area of Harford County, and hundreds of veteran teachers put in for transfer for that school.
Sure, of course.
And the principal who was, placed there pretty much had the pick of the best teachers in the county. And what I'm really excited about is that Blaine decided to hire 2 of my graduates, one of them in an elementary ed position and one for a special education position, first year running with that brand new school. Last year, she also hired one of our graduates. So I get phone calls from many principals or emails as well, wanting to know if I have any students that have graduated that may have not obtained employment because they need either long-term sub or they have a full-time position open. And pretty much I don't even have names to give them because because they're all employed. So this year we're a little bit worried. The counties are not hiring like they have been, but we have had a few that have obtained full-time employment. So.
And this is still only June.
Correct.
And many times after getting the lay of the land in terms of family transfers and needs in terms of student population. You have teachers who want to transfer, just like you suggested
Right.
with the Red Pump School, and a lot goes on before you actually get to the point where you're even hiring new people.
Right.
So this is good.
It's wonderful. It's very exciting. All of the instructors that are heavily involved with the cohort up in Northeast Maryland, we're very proud of the program, and we're just very happy when these students or our graduates are emailing us and we're like, I got a position, and one of the students obtained a position in youth benefit. It's another school very, very sought out by teachers in the county. Abington Elementary, pretty much. You can go anywhere in the county and you will find a recent graduate of the Heat Center cohort.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any sense of, since all these programs are both elementary or early childhood, general ed and then special ed, do you have any sense of where that breaks down in terms of your graduates? Are most of them finding, I would venture to guess that more would be asked to be special educators rather than general educators. Do you know how that breaks down?
That's a good question. I would say it's pretty even. Yep, we have a lot of the graduates have been hired for elementary ed positions, and a lot of them have been hired for special ed. I can't say that special ed hirees it's outweighing the elementary ed.
That's
Yeah.
interesting in and of itself,
It is.
because that's usually where the greater need is, certainly in special education.
It's just that there's less, special education positions.
Uh-huh.
Some of the schools in Hartford County, they have as few as 2.5 special education positions in a building. So, but they have a very large ed population.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well, what do you envision for the future for Toni Guidi?
That's a great question. I love working with, I love being the program coordinator at the Heat Center. I recruit students from the area colleges, so I start the relationship with them very early. As they're applying into the program, they contact me. I also advise them in regards to, are they taking the correct courses at the area community college, in order to meet the prereqs and everything. Many of them struggle to pass the Praxis 1.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them will call me or email about suggestions about, what should I do about taking the Praxis, and I give them advice such as maybe you should just take one test at a time instead of taking all three.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm the one that writes the acceptance letters, and I'm the one that then introduces them to the program, and we have an orientation meeting. And then for the next 2 years, I'm also an instructor in the program, and I'm also their advisor.
Uh-huh.
So I get to know my students for both programs very, very well, and I really enjoy getting to that deep level of getting to know the students in the program. So it's very fulfilling professionally because I love to teach, and there's that connection between the students and myself that I really enjoy. So I'm looking forward to continuing in this role for many years to come. I'm excited to be one of the first faculty members to have an office in the brand new building.
Uh-huh.
So I'm excited about that. But I also have connections with campus as well. The elementary ed special education program for the entire department has 5 cohorts.
Wow.
And so we have one at Shady Grove. We have 3 that are based out of campus, and then the one up in Northeast Maryland. And I'm also the program coordinator for all of the EASY cohorts. So my role does extend beyond just the Northeast area of Maryland. And I do teach on campus because I like to have my feet on the ground and come to campus because I do enjoy campus life as well. So I'm kind of right now at a wonderful place where I have my feet and hands in so many different things that I'm loving what I'm doing, and if I can inspire, my students to be the best teacher that they can, then I just want to continue in this role.
Great. Well, and it seems to me you're also building a whole new group of mentor teachers.
Yes, absolutely.
For your teacher candidates down the road. You certainly will have a host of people in the Hartford County area that you can draw on eventually.
Absolutely.
And I have a sense from having spoken to some of the graduates of the program that they are overwhelmingly pleased with the education they got, the experiences they had, and it sounds to me like they would want to be involved in this in terms of being a resource to other teacher candidates. So,
Absolutely. The first cohort that graduated in 2010, they will be eligible for tenure at the beginning of the first day of this coming school year, and I already have my eyes set on several of them. And the good thing is the principals are in agreement with me, since they have the best judge of the graduates. So it's exciting. I know they want to give back to a program that they truly believe in.
I have one last question for you, and that's what kind of advice, what kind of wisdom would you share with individuals who are considering teaching as a profession?
Oh, I could talk about that forever, but I guess basically whoever goes into the teaching profession absolutely has to love what they do, because it is not a job, it is a profession. And what I always say when it comes to my program, the ultimate consumer of my program, or the two programs that I'm in charge of, it's actually not the college student. It's the student that's sitting in that class of a teacher that I prepared to be, certified and to be, either a special or general education teacher. And what teachers do on a daily basis greatly affects the lives of their children. And if the teacher themselves is not happy in that role, then the child is not going to do well. And it's just not good for the child, and it's actually not good for the teacher, personally. So it's a lot of work, but it's very fulfilling. And I just hope that whoever goes into the field truly loves teaching for what teaching is. So.
Is this something you share with those candidates when they first come into the program?
I do. I am very honest with them. I'm very honest about the rigor of the program, that, there's no guarantee, to be honest with you, that they're going to make it through. We have removed students as late as their last semester of the program. It's a lot of work. There's going to be tears, but at the same time, there's a lot of joy. And what we teach is very relevant and realistic to what they're going to need to know when we're in the field. And I keep telling them it really isn't about them. It's about those children that are sitting in their classes. And they need to, they're angry. The students in the program might be upset because, they didn't do well on an assignment. But if I can teach them to be a better teacher so that their children are better, their students are better served, then we're going to be honest with them and we're going to give them that feedback. So.
Is there anything that we've forgotten? Something that you wanted to say or share that hasn't been covered in a question?
Not really. I would love to have anyone who's ever interested in coming up to the Northeast area of Maryland and visiting our program or our classes. Would love to, walk everyone through the program or whatever. But it's just, it's a successful program. Towson and the College of Education is a wonderful college, and I'm just very excited to be a part of it.
Well, thank you very much for taking your time
Thank
to come
you.
and talk to us.
Thank you.